there was so many things that I've accomplished in 2024. I felt like this year was definitely setting me up for the next year in 2025. And I'm so sad to see it go, but I'm also happy because I'm ready to start new goals, new accomplishments, and be able to do this year a little bit differently because I will be sharing it with you guys. But before looking forward, I need to look back on all the things that I've accomplished, which reading wise, and I'm so happy to share that with you guys. Hi, I'm Garcella Robinson, and welcome back to my channel. Today I will be bringing you my 2024 reading wrap up. So now that we got all the introductions out the way, I want to go over a little bit of my 2024 stats. I have read 112 books today. This is way more than I read last year. I really wished I would have been able to record 2023, but sadly I did not. I wasn't ready to start my YouTube channel just yet, but I have read 80 books last year, and I did a little bit of an experiment where I didn't add any of my novellas in. So it was just straight books. And when I did the 80 books, I had read over 33,000 pages. So I wanted to make sure I beat that. So I read 112 books, but I did 33,658 words. Now, my reading goal for this year was the same as last year. I started off at 80, and then after, I got the little banner from Goodreads, I decided to move it up to 100, and I was able to surpass that and go to 112. So I use Fable, I also use Goodreads, and I use Storygraph. And after calculating like all my ratings and stuff, it was a little bit different on each one because, as you know, if you go on Goodreads too, Goodreads don't let you choose between the half stars. So I was able to use Fable and Storygraph to come down to my average rating, which was a 3.4 rating. I felt like this was super low for me, so at least in my next video, I'll go over it a little bit more, but I definitely want to get higher next year. And my average book page, which I'm very disappointed about because I was really trying to get it higher. That's the reason why I did the 80 books last year, so I can be able to get a higher book page count. So, but this year it was 302. I really like for it to be at least at 400. I don't like my pages to be at 302. I kind of like to do either half-half. So I'm reaching up to that 599 or 400 or so reading page count. So those are all my stats. Of course, I would go over like which genre I would read more, but the most genre that I read is fantasy and romance. It don't really get divvied up more than that. So the first one that I will be bringing up is my least favorite reads. I hate having least favorite books. I feel like I try not to judge books too much because I really just read for vibes. I feel like all going for plot holes, I don't really look for it unless it be very blinding. And but these are the ones that made a huge impact on me, and I just literally hated these books. I rated them less than at least 2.5 stars, or I'm pretty sure 1 star. And the first book that I want to start off with is the Shatter Me series. So as I said before, I don't, well, at least in my past videos, as you know, I'm not going to really say the word because I just said it too many times and I'm kind of sick of saying it. But the first book that I won't have any of the books physically. So I'll just be posting them up here so you'll be able to see them on which book I'm talking about. But the first book that I want to talk about is Shatter Me, and I rated this book 1 star. Yeah. I felt like this was a book, at least even the series, I felt like this was a book that TikTok definitely failed me on. Because I definitely got this series off of TikTok. They were saying, oh, it's good, And I'm not gonna lie, I felt like it was straight garbage. It was trash. It was such a disappointment. I feel like even when I read it, like there was just so much going on. Nothing was explained. But so it takes place with this girl. I believe her name is, who was that girl name? Oh, Juliet. Yeah. Her name was Juliet. So Juliet was like some things end up happening to her in an instance where she got locked in kind of like a psych ward because she had powers that nobody understood. So when she was locked up there, they had, after she was locked up there, they had pretty much some, like the world just went to crap, like it turned into a dystopian, and this guy was sent there to come get her, which he was part of, it don't say his name, but I know it was part of like Warner or whatever, and he tricked her, got her to join the one guy Warner who's in charge of this one I'm trying to think of the word, but this one area. He was in charge of the one area, and he took her in, and she didn't like that. He wanted to use her as a weapon, and she didn't want him to. She didn't want him to use him as a weapon. So I also wanted to do something a little different, and I felt like, because I love writing reviews, I feel like I love to give people my truest opinion on a book. So I want to be able to show you guys what I wrote, so we all can go over the books that, well, at least what I wrote for these books. Let me pull it up. So going over the screen, well, not the screen. I was just trying to record it because I ain't never did it before. But let's click into my review. So I tried giving this book the benefit of the doubt, but I could not. I'm not going to say I expected a lot from this book because I didn't. I will say I was just happy to read this, but I went in with no expectations. The books are short, they seem entertaining enough, but nope. In better words, this was hot garbage. It was all over the place. Everything felt thrown in and not fully thought out. And I don't know what it is with YA books, having these traumatized girls falling in love in the first book. Like, let these girls heal. And the author trying to make this okay is just even worse. Don't get me wrong, I love Insta Loves as much as the next, but this was ridiculous. And don't get me started on Aaron. This is a spoiler, so I'm not going to spoil it for you guys, but I am going to keep reading to see if the story improves, but if not, DNF, thank you. And I will say the story is not improving, but I will say it's kind of like one of those uh, uh, real life housewives kind of thing, and I feel like it's just entertaining, even though it's trash. You know what I'm saying? Like trashy TV, trashy reality TV. That's what this gives me. That's what this book gives me. So yeah, that's the first book that's in my least favorites. The next one that I want to mention is A Court of Thorns and Roses. Now, I have read the other two, or the first and second book, I believe, last year in 2023, but I just put the whole series all together because I just finished the series not too long ago, and it was a huge disappointment. So let me pull those up, at least for the second and the third and fourth book. I'm going to put those up. I don't really believe I wrote a review for them, but I do know I gave them a bad rating. I literally sold the series after I finished it because I was just done. And her name Sarah J. Maas ended up getting brought up again, and that's because she made it on a different list, which that I felt like I should include. And let's just say it's not good. It was a real disappointment because I love the Throne of Glass series, but A Court of Thorns and Roses was just not for me, and I felt like the hype that it got was just, it was just crazy. I felt like it was misplaced, but that's just me. Okay, now I see why I put this entire series on my least favorite is because I read the first book in 2023, and then I read the second, third, and the 3.5 in 2024. But I didn't read A Court of Silver Flames because I felt like I already didn't like the series. I just DNF'd the whole entire series. I didn't like the series, and I also didn't like the sister. I feel like she had too much of an attitude. I don't know, like, I feel like her sister did too much for this girl for her to be having an attitude, especially with you being the older sister. I feel like she just could never redeem it for me. And the stuff that she kept doing in the books to disappoint her mate or like make him mad just like blew me, because I feel like he kept doing so much for her to prove to her that he was like, you know, of value, and she just kept throwing him to the side. Like, I felt like at that point he should have just gave up on this girl. Like, there's nothing that can justify the stuff that this girl did, or the stuff that, and then the way the author just kept saying, oh yeah, you know, she's such a badass, such a badass, and I was just not agreeing. I just felt like she was a little kid having a temper tantrum and wasn't acting like an adult at all. But let's go into why I didn't like these books. So the first one I'm going to start with, A Court of Wings and Ruin. I actually rated this book 2 stars. Oh, this was the third book. I read a Court of Mist and Fury. I felt like that one got a little bit better. I don't want to really go into much detail because I feel like after you explain more of the series, it starts to, what's the word for it? It starts to tell the story, because like it's the second book. Like, everything happens in the first book. It pretty much gives you the base of what's going on. So I'm not going to explain these books too much. But it started getting good in the first book, so I ended up rating that 3 stars. And then I rated A Court of Wings and Ruin 2 stars, and A Court of Frost and Starlight 1 star. Now, let's see if I left some reviews on these, because I don't really remember. I feel like I kind of was just done with these. Yeah, see, A Court of Mist and Fury, I didn't write no review. Sorry, it's loading. Jesus, the heck is taking so long? So, pulling up a Court of Wings and Ruin, yeah, I have nothing to say, but I'm taking a break from Sarah J. Maas. And this speaks volumes because, as I said before, like, I'm going to bring her up later on because she definitely got put on a bad list for me. But yeah, I rated A Court of Rings and Ruin. I feel like my rating just kept going down because it went from, I believe I had rated the first book 3 stars too, and then I read the second book, I read it 3 stars, and then it went 2-1. 2-1. Yeah. I feel like a series should not be getting less stars. Like, at least one of them should have got a 4 or something. And then I believe it took me a couple of months before I just picked up the last book, because I felt like I was like, oh, let me just knock this out. I had already had the box set, so I just wanted to get it done. And I felt like this book made my decision to finally DNF instead of pushing through, because I didn't even want to read about Nesta anyway. Yep, see. Every time I look at this series on my bookshelf, I'm like, why did I start reading this series? I'll pick up another book up, and then when I'm reading it, I'll remember why. I think it's time to unhaul the whole series and just DNF A Court of Silver Flames, because I'm sorry, there's literally nothing Nesta could do to ever make me think better of her. I'm sorry. It's so bad I don't even want her with Cassian. Look. See, I'm already preaching to myself. I said it in the beginning, and I didn't even look at these before I pulled them up again. And I'm saying it again. It's a wrap for me. The next book that I want to mention is Hollow Heathens. Now, I want to say I don't believe this book is really that popular, but the reason why it was such a disappointment for me, because when I picked this book up, I had such high expectations. I felt like this book was going to be really good because of the premise that the author gave us. Like, I believe it was about a girl. She was from this hometown, and there was so much bad things happening there that she got sent with her nanny. Her dad gave her up, and there was just so much drama. So after a while, her grandpa got sick, so she decided to go back and be able to find out what happened to her parents, and also to be able to take care of the only living family member that she had. And after she went there, she ended up running into this guy who was part of this kind of like dark cult, and they ended up having a love story. I felt like that sounded perfect. And also it kind of had like a witchy vibe. I love the cover, and I also love the character's name too, which is crazy because I don't remember them. But it definitely had a good, it had potential, but it disappointed me. And I also believe I rated this book 1 star too. But I'm gonna pull it up and we're gonna go over it and see if I left a review for it. If I could find it. Oh, there we go. Oh, I rated this book, at least on Goodreads, I rated it 2 stars, but I believe I gave it a 1.5. That's let me not speak too specific because I feel like I keep see, a 1.5. And I said, this was a disappointment. Hollow Heathens had everything I would want in a romance book. Sexy guy who has a dark side and magic. What could a girl ask for? Well, I definitely should have asked for a better plot and characters. Seeing as the book said these things were added to the book, it lagged throughout all 475 pages. I definitely agree with that because I felt like this book was too long for no reason. I'm actually getting sick of romance books, even fantasy romance books. At least if it doesn't have a good plot and it's more centered around the romance than it is the actual plot, because they be making these 500 to 600 page books and it start to drag and get boring and they don't have nothing else to write. But let me get back to it. At first, the story was very interesting, but the longer it went on with barely anything happened, I got confused and overwhelmed with everything that kept getting dropped in the story out of nowhere. It got to the point I was considering a DNF, which I literally paused halfway throughout the book, and it took me a minute to even finish it because I was kind of just done. But I was at 200 pages and thought it could probably get better. Nope. There was so much wrong with this book, but I'm just going to get into it with the main characters, and without even going into the plot or the world building, it would explain enough. Fallon, that's why, yeah, see, their names were beautiful. Fallon, she was straight gullible. Sometimes when they make the female characters, I don't mind a little drop of gullibility just to make the story a little entertaining, but she was just too much for me. Okay. At this point, it's not even crazy no more. It's just Delulu. Like I said, I'm not gonna show you all the spoilers. I don't want to spoil nobody. And then Julian, the man boy who won't stop crying. I feel like my reviews just be too truthful. It be too truthful because this man just did stop crying. Literally every time she saw him, he cried. He cried everywhere. I feel like I don't mind a guy having a little bit, vulnerability, especially in a book. But come on, man up, bruh. You already done killed all these people, man up. I can't even give anything on him because all he did was cry the whole time and run. He always thought everything was on his shoulders. Don't know what, since it was barely or matter of fact poorly explained. This book was just silly and was so over the top with barely any explanation. Both characters were clueless to everything that was happening. This did not have to be 400 pages to reach its conclusion. I just want to say this was not in any way a dark romance in any shape or form, and the term shouldn't be used so loosely on a book like this. Thank you. Mwah. And I definitely have to agree, even though I'm agreeing with myself. But I feel like a dark romance is definitely getting thrown around so crazily. Like I felt like this is another story for another time, but it's definitely getting thrown around. It's definitely getting thrown around too much and too loosely for books like these. Like it don't even have no dark romance like elements. It just be like, a little gore here and there. At this point, they should just call it we put a drip of horror. We put a little drip of horror. That's it. Not all this, no. Especially on books like this. I think it was a series and I definitely DNF'd it. I'm not, no. Tell you the truth, if I could have and if I wasn't leaving early, I definitely would have DNF'd this book too. Well, at least sold it. I wouldn't have been able to DNF it since I already finished it. Now, those were all the books that I felt like my least favorite. And the next one that I will be bringing up is my disappointments. And I know you're wondering, like, oh, didn't she just do her least favorites? Well, my disappointments is because also had high expectations for these books, or I felt like it kept dwindling down. I feel like the other three books, at least Hollow Heathens, could have went in this one, but the other ones was just so much of a disappointment. So much. They were just my least favorite reads that I just had to put them in least favorite. But these were disappointments for me because it started off good and it could have been better. And the first book, well, series that I want to bring up, because I read Legend Born last year, but I read Bloodmarked this year, and that was a huge disappointment for me. I felt like it definitely could have been done so much better. I don't even want to give this author a try even anymore because she really disappointed me in these books. But it takes place with this her name is Brianna. That's the main character. Her mom ended up dying, and she had some suspicions. But either way, she wanted to go to the college that her mom had went to before. So when she went to this college, she ended up finding this whole racist society, and in that society, they had powers, and they can train to be warriors and stuff like that. So inside that, but the only reason why she joined it in the first place is because she's trying to find out the secret of why her mom died. And during that, she ended up finding some things that was just too much of, pretty much explained a lot, but also didn't explain enough because she ended up finding out secrets that she wasn't even planning on finding out. And I felt like it had, just as like all the other books that I mentioned, I really only pick up books if I felt like it have a good storytelling, like if it has a good start. And for The Legend Born, I'm not really sure what I rated it. It wasn't that long ago, but I always forget what the heck I be rating these books. But let's pull it up really quick. Now, I had rated Legend Born a 3 star. Now, even like reading my review, I'm not gonna show you guys because I feel like it was a 2023 book. We done put this in the past, and I was really contemplating giving it a 2 or 2.5. But the book that I will be showing you is the second book in the series, which is Bloodmarked. I feel like I want to show you guys because I definitely feel like this should get more, at least speculation, because I feel like this book is too much of a like, oh yeah, it's so good, but I just don't like. You'll understand. So let me pull it up. In Bloodmark, I went from a 3 star, and then I rated this to 2 stars, and then I DNF'd the whole series. Now, I do know for sure I left a review on this because I was kind of a little bit upset. But I am going to read this. I'm going to try not to spoil it too much because, like I said, series usually tend to spoil for itself when you read a review for the second book. But before getting into this hate I have for this book, the main character and the author's intentions when it comes to representing young black women. I have to give credit where credit is due. This author's writing is phenomenal, which of course I'm vouching for it because I feel like she do write really good books. This book had me entertained from start to finish. I just didn't like the concepts that she had in this book that I just did not agree with, and I felt like people should be forewarned when trying to get into, at least not trying to get into black authors, but at least for situations like this, especially for young girls who want to find an inspiration, I felt like this is definitely a bad concept of it. And like I said, that's in my opinion. Even with the storytelling side, it has great intentions in this aspect, and I get the love for this book, at least in that aspect, because the story really pulls you in. Because of this fantastical writing, I gave this book an extra star and a half than the 1 star I was originally going to give it. Because of my own personal issues with the book and its character doesn't mean that this author's talent shouldn't be recognized. With that small praise, I still want to mention my dislike, at least warn the women who came in for the same intentions I did, and to let them know what they will be getting instead. I just want to let it be known I hated Brianna. I'm not too fond of a triangle romance. I really just like the one character being with the other character, and we already know from the get go who's going to be with it. And that's definitely from my past of just reading straight romance books. And I was not too fond of the author's representation of black people or its characters. Let's get into it. I hated Brianna. Being a black young woman myself, I could never see myself or friends of mine ever making these decisions. Whew. Speak, girl. Speak. She's impulsive and doesn't think anything through. Weak when it comes to advancing in her powers and thinking that she has something to bring to the table and put her peers who have to guard her with their life in harm's way. And anytime she wants their trust, they give it to her, and then she or someone gets hurt listening to her. And you would think this would happen maybe once or twice. No, it's multiple times. Now, I might give a little bit of spoilers to this one because this series, like this book, was just such a big disappointment. I was just livid. I was livid. And I felt like it was mostly to do with Brianna. There was no making up for this girl because I just, like, at least for me, I just feel like I try to put all of my friends' safety first. Like, that becomes anything. I don't care what type of powers or who I'm trying to, like, this book, this character is just unrelatable to like at least a lot of black women that I experienced in my life. Like I just felt like this would be a bad representation of us, and the times that she just kept getting her people murked, like she just always wanted to be like, oh yeah, I want to fight, and don't know how to do nothing. There was so many times that what's his name, Sel, he kept telling her like, oh, stay back, stay back. You're not strong enough yet. You're not strong enough. You're our strongest link. We can't lose you. And this girl just kept throwing herself in harm's way, not caring, not just she didn't care. And then she like also was getting people sacrificed for no reason. Like it was just too much, and she just kept making me mad. There's so much more to mention, but then I will be here too long. For triangle romances, I'm just not a fan, especially with the way it's represented in this book. It's practically cheating, because I think she said she was with what's his name? I, it started with an A. She was with what's her name, and she just kept, and then at each time, like I think she kissed Sel at one point. That was a spoiler. My bad. She kissed Sel at one point, and she was still with what's his name. Never broke up with him. And then I'm just gonna skip the spoiler, even though I already mentioned one. I'm gonna skip this spoiler. The last topic I want to mention of my problem with this book is the representation of black people or characters. Oh, actually, I might read this one because I feel like it should. Does anyone not find it weird that this story is about a black woman breaking boundaries and dealing with race? And she doesn't have one black love interest. I'm not saying for her to be with him, but as a potential love interest. I do, like, this is something that I felt like irked me. Like, I felt like, okay, if she was going to be with whatever his A name, that's fine. But you're telling me this young black girl didn't have no black love interest? Like, oh, he wasn't in the college. And then don't even get me started on the colleges, because this girl wasn't even in college like half of the whole entire time. I think it's not one class mentioned. Not one. Ever. It's just she went to college. Next thing you know, she joined this little sorority cult thing. And then next thing you know, just class is just forgotten about. You also can't even count on one hand of the young black adults in this college that you remember and play an important role in the story and are not in it for one chapter or a few pages. Yes, there are a lot of black older people, but no young adults in a YA book. For what the author is trying to represent, and you can't even count on one hand, is highly concerning to me, even when it comes to the romance. Not even one black love interest, or at least in an introduction of one. My issues with this book that I had, even in the last book, this is supposed to be for the target audience of a strong young black woman breaking boundaries, and I cannot even see myself in this character or even a small similarity. I hate to push this series off my library because it is a good story, but I did not get what I was expecting from this book or even a good surprise to resonate with me as a young black woman. Now, I just want to say if you are looking for a strong black woman breaking boundaries to lead a path for those after her and being uplifted by her community with family or friends by her side, then book is not for you. And until the next read, mwah. And I definitely have to say that I feel like I hit some good points. I know everybody won't agree with me when I say this, but I definitely feel like it needed to be mentioned because I always see this book getting hyped up, being like, oh yeah, if you want to get into black fantasy romances, I feel like this just not it. It's not it. There's better ones out there. Like let's say for instance, Amari and the Great Game. I felt like that book was really good, really good. But that was just one of my disappointments. I believe, I actually believe that was all. Oh, my bad. That was wrong. That was wrong. I also have Amari and the Despicable Wonders. Now, I did just mention this, but I said Amari and the Night Brothers. Amari and the Despicable Wonders, huge disappointment. Huge disappointment. I definitely feel like the author definitely slacked with this one, or he came out with this book too fast because it just was not good. I believe I either gave it a 3 star or a 2.5, and that was being generous. That was being generous because I wouldn't say it didn't deserve that. It just was yeah, like I said, 2.5. I love Amari and the Night Brothers, and this installment was my most anticipated release. The first one was spectacular, the second installment a little forgettable, but still an okay read. But the installment just felt rushed. Don't get me wrong, this author can write, and I don't want to give up on him just yet. But this installment really disappointed me. My first and most biggest disappointment was Quentin. If you want to check out this review, I'm not going to go into detail because I don't want to give any spoilers, especially with this being the third book. My second thing was a disappointment was the repercussions of fighting in this supposed war. My third disappointment, well, not a disappointment, but it was just mind-boggling. And this one was, yeah, it was Dylan. My last complaint was the ending. When it came to the first 2 books, I was able to logic what needed to have at least a little bit of logic, but this book just had too many plot holes and felt so rushed and unexplained. I don't even know if I want to concede with the next installment he's talking about coming out with. If it's anything like this one, I'll sadly have to pass respectfully. Now, Amari and the Night Brothers, or the whole entire series, is pretty much about Amari. She's a little girl, her mom is a nurse, and she grew up in the hood. But her mom tried to put her in a school where she's able to, be able to get something out of school instead of what's in her neighborhood, which I love the aspect of it. But her brother, he was important in their community. He helped little boys actually try in school. Even his sister helped him try in school, and he made such an impact. And then one day he just went missing. So the police was saying, oh, he must have been in a gang, he must have got shot or whatever like that. And Amari just didn't believe it. So she kept looking for looking online, seeing if anybody's seen him, looking for his missing pictures in situations like that. And then after a while, after looking for him, she ended up getting this letter from him saying, welcoming her into a school for magical, to become magic. And when she joins this school, she ended up getting a much bigger surprise. And she's looking for her brother and trying to find out what happened to him, because it all leads up back to this school. The first book was so good, and the second book too. I read the second book on Deployment 2, and Amari and the Despicable Wonders came out this year, and I read that one too. I felt like it was super bad, but the first 2 books were really good. So it was just the third book that was a disappointment. I don't want to scrap the whole series. It was just the third book, and I'm kind of sad to see it starting to fall a little bit down. But maybe this was, his middle book. It be that one book that just never amounts to the rest of them. So I hope it get a little bit better in the 4th installment that he planned on coming out with. Now, The next book that I want to mention, this is my last one for my disappointments. And let me pull it up for you because I'm not really sure what I rated this book. I'm not really sure what I'll be rating any of these books. I'm not gonna lie. I'll rate them when the time comes. Yeah, and that was Apprentice to the Villain. And this was the second installment to Assistant to the Villain. This is the second book. And this book was a disappointment for me because I felt like I expected so much to happen and I felt like it didn't. I rated this 3 stars and I wrote, sadly, I did not love this installment as much as I did the first, and that's saying something because there were so many potholes in the first installment, but the vibes were vibing, and I will take either vibes, plot, or all the feels to give a 5 star. That's just me. I feel like vibes is definitely, I'll take that over anything. But Apprentice to the Villain felt short in so many ways. Since there were barely any vibes, the places where it felt short were blinded to not notice that I couldn't not look past them. The no explanation escapes, the plot holes, and even the really cringy moments from Evie. I know I'm already coming into the review bashing it. It wasn't super bad, it was just okay. And for what the assistant to the villain left in its stead, I wanted more than just okay. I wanted steam and explanations, not more questions and a dull romance. What mostly disappointed me was the romance. Oh my gosh. When I say I was frustrated on this front, I was this close to just DNF. But once I got to the point, the author would give me a lick of the lollipop and then she would take it away again. LOL, I don't know why I use this reference, but in my head, that's how it felt. I'm sure I wasn't the only one who thought this, but I didn't see any improvement from Miss Hannah. This book felt like a bait click book. With how much non-progress was made in this installment, I'm dreading how fast-paced the author will make the third installment to cover ground. I hate that I'm going to have to be cautious about grabbing the final book in this series because I see so much potential in this author, and I really wanted this series to be an automatic buy for me. Until the next read. Yeah. That's sad to say because I believe I gave Assist to the Villain like either a 4 or 5 star because it was just so good. Like I felt like it was giving the same vibes similar to um what's it called? I forgot the book. I'm always forgetting the book. I have a short memory. And now, the next thing that I want to get into is authors that I will be giving up on and my reasons why. Now, some of these authors you might not know, they're not that popular, especially the first two. I only read them, they're more like my novella romance books because I'm kind of getting sick and tired of the 200 to 300, 500-page romance books. And the first one that I want to mention is Sam Crescent. I'm going to just go quick because, like I said, not many people know this author, but I still want to give credit where credit is due. And when I first started off her books, she write mostly books about thicker women finding romance. And I love that because, I wouldn't say, put it like this, I would say I'm thick too. And I would just be wanting to see a little bit like loving for people my size. And Sam Crescent was definitely it was definitely a good start, but her books are starting to get a little just not my cup of tea anymore. The next one that I want to mention is Alexa Riley. I don't know how many books I done read by this lady, but I love her books also, but her books are getting a little bit too, I don't want to say too dark, but I feel like she's stepping over the line now. She's stepping over the line. At first she was just tiptoeing. She was tiptoeing, but now she done ran and jumped and skyrocketed, and now she just giving crazy stuff. Like, it's part of her, just one of her little things that she got. If you look her up, you can find it. And the next one that I'm sad to let go and to stop buying because I'm actually in the middle of Crescent City series, but I'm definitely taking a step back from this author until till I hear better things or until she improve a little bit, and that's Sarah J. Maas. She really disappointed me with this the series, A Court of Thorns and Roses series. I feel like it was just too trash. I don't want to finish it anymore. And the next one, now the reason why I actually DNF'd this author last year, but I felt like she was so important to put into this vlog, and that is Anna Huang. Now, I feel like she's one of the most liked books on TikTok, at least romance wise, and I don't get the hype. I read the first book and it was really good, and then next thing you know, her second, third, and fourth book all sounded alike. The characters sounded alike to me. All the stories sounded alike. There was nothing different. It was like literally, I felt like I was rereading the book over and over again, over and over again. Different names over and over again. It did not get better. And that was a really disappointment because the first book was just so good. At least when I read it, it was really good. I was so ready to hop into the second book. And when I read the second book, I was like, okay, this sounds a little bit like the same. Then I got into the third book and I said, what the hell? You done bamboozled me out my money over the same book. But yeah. So now that I got all the bad out the way, let's go into the good. With those authors getting pushed to the side, pushed into last year, I want to go into books that I plan on bringing into the new year, and that I plan on following their books and seeing what they bring to the next year. And the first one that I want to mention is Deanna Gray. I actually found this author out in December. Like, I never read any books by her, but the first two books that I read by her was just so good. I don't believe they made this list. At least I don't think so. I don't believe they made this list, but they were definitely good. And the next author that I want to bring is Jade. I had mentioned her in my first video, and I want to give this author even more credit because I just love her books. I felt like it's just I feel like I could just turn off my brain and just read her books. Like, there's just no, like, mix-ups. Like, she already know what she plan on doing. She's coming out with books a little bit more faster, and I want to give her the credit that she deserves. Now, the next one, I want to say I'm a little iffy about, but she has been bringing some bangers. At least I felt like TikTok did good on this one, and that is Allie Hazelwood. Now, I will say I will give her by the end of this year because she might get put on that list too. And the reason why is because I feel like she's giving us the same characters. Like, I feel like when I be reading romance books, I want to, give us something different. Try something different. Try something new. And this author she just keep making the same characters. Like, I feel like the girls be small and petite. They be super skinny. They be small and they be in science. And that's fine because she have a STEM series. That's understandable. But literally all these women act the same. And the next one is her dudes. Like, sorry, they're cleaning. But the next one is her dudes. Like, she always make them super tall. They be so tall, like they're towering over them. They be having to look down on these little girls, and they be super lean and scrawny too. And I'm just not feeling it. I understand I get it. I feel like authors write themselves, and they write the type of people that they're attracted to. But I feel like when you're writing for a fan base, that's understandable. That's understandable. But, give us a little bit more. Give us a little bit more spice. Actually make your girl average weight. Let's try like 140, 150, maybe. I don't know. You don't have to, I'm not saying to go over the limit where she's plus size, but at least you can make her average weight and not like this girl is anorexic. That's just me. But she do make some good books. She is a good writer. I love Bride. I read that this year too. I love Bride. I love Theoretically. I just loved all the books that I've picked up from her. They've been really good. Something new. Something new. Some new characters, some new faces. Maybe give them some wavy hair. And that's all for my newfound authors that I read this year that I do plan on bringing into next year. Now, I only have 2 more. This video is kind of long, but I just felt like there was so many books that I wanted to put in this. And tell you the truth, I didn't even put all the books that I actually wanted to put in here because I had to cut them short. And I know this video is getting super long, but I just, I just love going over all the books I read. I'm happy to be able to bring them into light and show y'all the books that I like, even the genres that I loved and all the reviews that I've done written for these books. But the next one that I will be getting into is my book surprises. The first one I want to mention is Six of Crows. I rated this book 4 stars. Now, I believe I wrote reviews for all of them. So let's click into it and see what I wrote. Now, I will say for most of the books that I've read for, like when it's at least a favorite for me, I don't really write review, at least long reviews for them. It really just be for books that I feel like were trash or garbage or just was basic. But the first thing that I want to say that I wrote, because this was after reading her, which books was it? After reading her first series that she had came out with, Shadow and Bone. After reading that one, I felt like it was basic. I didn't like it. It was just, I didn't like it. But what's her name? Leah Bardugo has redeemed herself. This was by far the best I read from Leah Bardugo, and I was about to give up on this author if this book was a flop. But surprisingly, she came through with a masterpiece. This book was so good. This was such a wild ride, and the characters held so much depth in their own lives that I'm sad to be parting from them for the time being. And I know this series takes place in the Grishaverse, but it was still nice to see it all coming together and wrapping itself into a tiny little book. If I had to recommend any book by this author so far, it would be this one. However, some things that made me lower my rating, it wasn't the writing or the storytelling, and though I know it might be an unpopular opinion, I have to say it. You know what I'm saying to say? Yeah, Cass. This character made this book a semi-bad experience for me. I'm not going to have any spoilers, but if you want to check out my reviews, you already know my Goodreads account. It's in the link below. And I can't wait to read the next book, especially with what Leah Bardugo left us on. And I just know it's going to be even better than the last, hopefully. Fingers crossed. And I just want to say it was just as good. It was just as good. The next series that I want to get into is Defend the Dawn and Destroy the Night. This book was a surprise for me because I read the first book and I would just have to say it was okay. And this author blew it out the park. Nobody could tell me any different. I can't wait to pick up more books from this author. I believe I brought another series that's in my past video. And I just can't wait to read it. Like, she surprised me so much with this book, with the ending of the series. It literally had me in tears. I would recommend this series to anybody. I'm not gonna lie. It starts off a little rough in the first book, but the second and third one, she know what she doing. Now let's move on to what I said. Oh, let me give you a little brief summary. So in the first book, I believe it's called Day something. Oh, Defy the Night. I was so wrong. But Defy the Night. In the first book, it's about a prince and this apothecary. I believe that's where. And there's a disease going around where people are getting sick, they're dying, but there's this one flower that helps. It doesn't heal them, but it helps slow down the cough and slow down the cause of their death. And the princes, they're seen as like the devil's incarnate. None of the people like them, but the girl, she actually likes helping people, so she goes around and she's helping them, helping making the medicine for them and giving it to the poor people because they don't usually get as much from the kingdom. So she also was with this other guy. His name was Wes. She was with Wes, and he's helping her. So after a while, she told Wes that she want to break into the kingdom and, you know, actually make a difference. But when she's about, Wes said, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna do it for you," and sadly he ended up dying. And after she ended up sneaking back in even after his death, and after he told her not to go, and she ended up getting way more than she bargained for. I felt like this series was, it was just really good. But on to my review. Miss Bridget Kimmer did not come to play. I really love the second installment of this series. I literally could not put this book down. Everywhere I went, I took this book with me. I also incorporated this book with the audio, and the narrator did such an awesome job. I immediately went and bought the next book and downloaded the audio, especially with the cliffhanger. I'm sad that with me starting the next book, the series will be coming to an end. But if this last book is as good, maybe better than this book, I can really see myself doing a reread of this story. I love it when an author improves with the next book. That's exactly what this author did. I will say the reason why I didn't give this book 5 star, the 5 star it deserved, was because of Tessa. Now I'm not gonna get too much into her. Like, I felt like she kind of explained herself. She just kept doing stupid stuff, and she just trusted people too easily, and I don't like when people do that. So that was more of a personal reason, and that's the reason why I had lowered it. I felt like she was just too gullible, too gullible. And now the next one, Destroy the Day. Now Destroy the Day had me in tears. Like, even the ending, I was just so sad to have to end this series because it was such a good read. And look, even in here, I laughed, I cried, I raged, I fell in love. There's so much I want to say, but I don't even know how to get it on paper, or in this case, in my review. This series was just wonderful, and this last installment did me in. I definitely would have been okay with 300 to 400 more pages. I could see myself rereading and picking up more from this author. I'm sad to part with all the characters I fell in love with, but I'm glad to add another series to my favorites. This book was spectacular. I can't wait to see what more Miss Kimmer has in store for us. I will say I'm already eyeing another series of hers, A Curse So Dark and Lonely, which I brought on deployment with me. And until the next read, thank you. Can't forget my kisses. Mwah. Right. So yeah, that was it. It was really good. I felt like it definitely surprised me because it took me a minute before I even picked up the second book that I had to reread over somebody else's, review of them, like it pretty much explaining the whole first book because I forgot it and I wasn't ready to pick up that book again. Now the next one that I plan on bringing up is Jade City. This one got into surprises, not because it wasn't good, but it got into surprises because I did not expect the outcome that it had. I really thought I was about to get a Romeo and Juliet fighting type thing. I don't know. I feel like I mixed it up with another series of mine, but I definitely wasn't suspecting anything that happened in that book. It was really good. I'm not going to go over the review. I felt like it, yeah, I'm not going to go over the review. But it was really good. I believe I rated the book either 4 or 3 stars. I rated that book 3 stars because, like, all the things that happened in it, like, I felt like that author right there, she don't care who have to die. She don't care who have to die. And I'm scared of authors like that. They scare me because I feel like for you to be able to spend so many years pretty much like creating these characters and pretty much falling in love with these characters, making these characters the people that they are, and then you just up and be like, oh, you know what? Dead. Who next? Dead. You dead too. I'm killing you off. I'm making you have a brain injury. I'm blowing up everything you got. I don't like authors like that. They scare me. That's why it got a 4 star. I thought I did 3, but it got a 4 star. It was really good though. I can't wait to read the second book. I don't believe. Oh yeah, I did bring it. I brought the second and third book with me, but I'm telling you right now, because of how scared I am of this author, Fondali, because of how scared I am of this author, she might she gonna be the last one to even get thought of being read. She not even on my top priority list right now. Now, on to my and I forgot this book. My last surprise of this year would have to be Game of Thrones. This book was actually in my first video, and my friend, she had me read this book with her, and it was such a surprise because, as I said, I just never fell in love with this series, and I have finally, I have finally fell in love with the book. I felt like it was really good. I can't get past the incest, but it was really good. I rated it 3 stars. Now, the last one that I plan on getting into is my favorite books this year. And the first one that I would have to say that topped my list would have to be Project Hail Mary. Now, going to my reviews, I don't believe I wrote a long review for this one, but it was such a good book. Like, I feel like this book could definitely be a movie. Like, they need to make this a movie. It was really good. And the ending was just not what I expected either. Like, that ending took me out. This book, I believe this book had me crying too. Oops, I just got hungry. Here you go. I don't know why I'm just noticing, and I doubt it has anything to do with it, but I was listening to Hail Mary by Tupac and realized one of my favorite books of this year has a similarity to one of my favorite songs. But I cannot stress this enough. I love this book. Literally everything. I had to update my rating to a full 5 stars because of my love for it. This book was so detailed and worked well. I hate when it's like this where I love a book and don't have much to say, but that's what it is. The one main thing I could think about that really made me love this book so much is the dynamic between Rocky and Grace. It was just so heartwarming to be a witness to this duo, and the ending was just even more perfect. For such a beautiful and thoughtful read, thank you. And as you know, I rated this book 5 stars. Now, this one is about a science teacher. He saw himself doing great things, becoming a great scientist. But he just decided to, he pretty much just gave up on doing it and felt like it was just too much for him. So he ended up becoming a science teacher. And as the time was going by, the scientists of the United States, well, in this world, end up finding out that in a couple of years, pretty much our sun was dying. And it was getting eaten by these little what's it called? Organisms. It was getting eaten by these organisms, and they didn't know how they would be able to fix this problem. So they ended up bringing him in because he wrote a paper about like a situation with water that it was just a lot of explaining. I feel like I really can't go into it because I you know where you reading a word and the word is just like you just can't understand the word, so you kind of just skim over the word. I was kind of skimming over those scientific meanings. I'll look up some of them, but not all of them. And he ended up writing this paper about that had to do with it. So they ended up bringing him into the project just little by little until finally they actually brought him all the way in. So they ended up having a whole bunch of scientists who came together, and they told them that, oh, we can send you out there, but you have to they had to put them in sleep because they noticed that depending on how long you were out in space, it would cause them to turn against each other and cause them to go crazy. So they wanted to put them in cryo sleep. But for them to be able to get put in cryo sleep, they needed to have this dormant cell in them that they would be able to survive cryo sleep. So they were going to pick 3 scientists, well, like a mechanic who could actually fix the jet, or engineer, I don't remember, an engineer, and then 2 scientists, just in case the one scientist died. And they were gonna, but when they shoot you out there, they told them that you won't be coming back. You were gonna die out there. The only thing that you would be doing is finding out. You would be sacrificing your life for your country. well, for the world actually, because everybody was joining up together trying to figure out why the sun was, to combat this planet dying. So some situations ended up happening, and he got put on the spaceship, and I don't want to go too much into it, but he ended up getting put on the spaceship, and while he was out there, he ended up finding a different life source which was happening to their planet too. And they ended up going through like a whole bunch of trials to help each other and to combat this situation. So that definitely was a good book. The next one that I want to mention, I didn't write a review about. I read the first book, I believe last year, because it came out last year, and that was Empire of the Damned. I don't want to go too much into it because it was the second installment, so it really picks up from there. So, but I will say the first book is pretty much is about Gabriel. He's a vampire turned vampire. No, he's not a vampire. He's like half human, half vampire, and he goes through a situation where he has to. It's a lot. It's a lot to explain. I feel like Jay Kristoff, he did do a good job in it. It's just a lot to explain. I would say you would have to kind of look up the story for yourself. But it was a 5-star. It was a 5-star. And the next the next book that got put into my favorite was Funny Story. This was also got put in my favorites because it was just such a good book. It was a surprise for me. I didn't give it a full 5-star, but I feel like even a 4-star could be good because most of the time, even if it's a favorite and it got put into a 4-star, I most likely took off a star because of a personal reason than it actually being a bad story. Now going on to my I rated it. I rated it a 3.5, but I still felt like it was a favorite book though. Maybe I need to go back and change that. But when I say I felt like this book was rage bait with a cozy vibe, it's just crazy. But I'm telling you, Emily Henry made it possible. I love this book. I love how the author made the characters so human. I feel like this is hard to find in a lot of romance books. Not that I'm complaining or anything, but when I get a contemporary romance, it's something that I look for when rating them. Speaking of loving characters, Miles and Ashley has to have been my favorite because mixing Miles' laid-back personality and Ashley's upfront personality, I would say it describes me a lot. When thinking of their personalities, it just made this book so relatable. Funny Story is about... Oh, it's doing its own explanation. I'm happy I wrote this. Funny Story is about Daphne and Peter both getting dumped by their significant other, and then their significant others starting to date each other. Because I believe they were best friends. So his girlfriend and her boyfriend, well, fiance, was, they were best friends. Their family knew each other and all that. Not knowing what to do and having to uproot their lives, they both move in together and bond over their shared heartbreak. I think the thing that I didn't like about this book was how it was only told by Daphne. That's why I took the star. And I really wish we would have got Miles' side of the story because it made the story feel incomplete. I also felt like it wasn't long enough, not in the type of way where it's like, oh, it's not long enough because I love this so much, as it was more, it's not long enough and needed about 100 more pages. I'm also not going to lie, I had a hate-love relationship with Daphne. I kind of felt like she was selfish about her own feelings and was always jumping to conclusions so easily. It also played a part in a miscommunication that happened in the book, and I just cannot get behind miscommunications. I feel like that's more of a personal thing because I like to talk everything out, but when I read about it, it just seems like such a lazy way to create conflict in a romance. Like, can't we get something new? And though I had a before-mentioned holdups about the book, I will say I get the hype and I get the automatic 5 stars because this book is entertaining and there was never a dull moment in this book. I will say this being my first read by this author, it was a good surprise and I could see myself picking up another one of her books for sure. See, it wasn't a bad review. I gave it a 3.5 star was because of those things. But it wasn't a bad book. It wasn't a bad book. I felt like it deserved to get put on favorites because it was a good book. I still reminisce over it a little bit. Now, it didn't have me crying, but it definitely had me, because I don't even really like contemporaries all like that, and it definitely surprised me. So, yeah. So guys, that's my yearly wrap up. I really hope that you like this video. I actually broke this video up into 2 parts. After this video ends, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to get the next video, which is my New Year's resolution. And if you like this video, which I know is really long, and if you stayed into the end, I'm really grateful. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, bye.